Marsha Bungie, my colleague in the Religion Department, to introduce that last speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. What an honor and delight to introduce Tricia Hersey. Hersey is an activist, a multidisciplinary artist, and a theologian who radically expands common conceptions of rest. Known as the Nap Bishop, she is the founder of the Nap Ministry and author of the New York Times bestseller, Rest is Resistance, a manifesto. Her work has gone viral. Her book is being translated into multiple languages, and she has become a global leader of a growing rest revolution. Hersey's work builds on a wide range of life experiences and disciplines. She is a native of the South Side of Chicago and now lives in Georgia. She earned a Bachelor of Science in Public Health from Eastern Illinois University and a Master of Divinity from the Candler School of Theology at Emory University. Hersey's groundbreaking work has shown that being well rested is not just a matter of personal choices, but rather deeply connected to larger issues of social, economic, racial, and environmental justice. She links being tired to systemic inequalities, to widespread forms of dehumanization, and to the oppressive grip of what she calls grind culture, where the pace of work is exhausting and a person's value and worth are measured by productivity. Hersey's writings and ministries emphasize the liberating power of rest to heal body, mind, and spirit, to resist structures of oppression, and to reclaim our sacred humanity. We are deeply grateful to Hersey for her contributions to this year's Nobel Conference and to the growing worldwide conversation about rest, healing, and justice. Please welcome with me, Tricia Hersey.
Wow. I feel like we need to really sit with Benjamin's conversation. I'm so grateful. I'm deeply grateful for your work and for that presentation. I'm so grateful for history. I'm so grateful for the truth. That makes me so happy. And so I am here, there's the pictures, to talk a little bit about what I've been learning over the last 10 years with this movement called the Nap Ministry. Really wasn't meant to be a movement. It really was me as an exhausted, sleep-deprived artist, trickster, Black woman who decided to make a way out of no way, who decided to go within the depths of my own history to solve a problem. And the problem was I was deeply sleep-deprived, sleep-restricted, and in a place of deep stress. So I am an activist. I'm a proud activist, born and raised by an activist, a theologian, and an artist. I was raised by a Pentecostal, fire and brimstone, Holy Ghost preaching Black man from the Church of God in Christ in Chicago, Illinois. He was also a union organizer, a proud union captain of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Union Strong. Anybody Union Strong in here? Yes. Yes, Union Strong. Clap it up for the unions. And he was also a railroad carman and yardmaster for Union Pacific Railroad for over 35 years. He believed deeply in the care of communities and the resurrection of souls, and the resurrection of life, of communities, of us being able to make a way out of no way. He also worked himself to death and died an early death at 53 from complications from diabetes, heart disease, and obesity, all diseases traced to sleep deprivation. Grind culture, my definition of grind culture is a deep collaboration, a brilliant and sinister collaboration between white supremacy and capitalism that makes us internalize our own worth by how much we can get done, how much we can accomplish, how much we can produce. And from that, we find people who have very, very ways of pushing their bodies to the brink of exhaustion. These systems have sized us to believe that resting is lazy. We talked about laziness. And while Ben's presentation was really on the historic, I want us to really sit in the idea and the understanding, the truth, that the same engine that drove capitalism back during the transatlantic slave trade is the same engine that drives it today. It is the exact same engine. It has shifted, it has morphed, but the same energy and mindset that makes people believe that they are not worthy of rest, that they have to earn rest, that they're lazy if they have their day off and they decide to not do something. So much of our labor in this country is really simply just to survive, let alone thrive. The pace that grind culture demands is unsustainable. Yet we push our bodies to violent levels of exhaustion. We burn the midnight oil. We sleep when we are dead. We push, we ignore the cues from our own body to stop to rest. So we need deep societal change. Capitalism has traumatized us. It's traumatized us. And from what I'm understanding and learning when I listen to all of the beautiful sleep science and all of the sciences, I'll be processing the information from this conference for months, probably years. But what I really learned is that what we're doing to our bodies is really damaging it at the core level. This morning, I'm learning about literal brain damage from not sleeping, from pushing our bodies, bringing our bodies to the brink of this deep exhaustion, all for the cue of doing more, to produce, to pay bills, because of corporate greed and capitalism making it very, very, very hard for us to survive and thrive in this culture. Over my time with the NAP ministry, these are some beautiful fine art photography. As throughout the presentation, will be beautiful photos that have been taken by my friend Charlie Watts. She's a fine arts photographer, and we have a durational photography project where it's pictures of me and some of the NAP ministers who are helping me with this organization sleeping all over Atlanta. And what she did in this one, I love, she placed in, with her magic that she does, cotton fields. So there's cotton that I'm laying on, and there's cotton from a farm in North Carolina that's owned by a black family for 4 generations. And so a lot of my artwork as a installation artist, as a theater artist, really looks at the idea of cotton, of the labor of cotton, of plantation labor or forced camp labor. And I do a lot of really examinations with that. And so this is a piece here when I was in Atlanta sleeping with cotton around me, this idea of reclaiming my body, reclaiming my time for my ancestors who couldn't. And so this work really deeply comes out of my ancestors' reverence, giving deep reverence to them for what the rest that they could not get. And in this world, I want to reclaim that rest in real time for them. But capitalism has traumatized us all. And white supremacy has also traumatized and brainwashed us all. This is not just a black understanding. My work is deeply centered in black liberation and black scholarship, but I believe as a theologian, as an artist and as an activist and as a human being, that both of these toxic systems have created such violence in us, has created the thinking of this superiority, and it has really traumatized us and taken away our dignity and our divinity. So capitalism allows us to ignore the cues from our body to rest. We have over 1 million people following us on the Nat Ministries social media. I was in Australia last year, Amsterdam, I'm going to Dubai, I'm going to Korea, and so this is a worldwide global movement that comes in centers, that comes from a black thought, because black liberation is a balm for all of humanity. Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, one of my favorite activists, no one is free until we're all free. No one is free until we're all free. And so if one person is suffering, we all are suffering. So this black liberation, this idea of freedom and liberation is for us all. I've worked with millions of people around the world, and they feel so much guilt and shame when they rest. They don't know how to slow down. They don't know how to take a break. They don't know how to rest. There's this unraveling from a lifetime of programming that has told them they are lazy if they even attempt to rest. There's this crippling need for productivity that leaves them traumatized and burnt out. We all have heard about burnout. I'm sure if you work in corporations, they have days where they try to help with burnout by doing yoga and have pizza parties, and it's burnout time. And during the pandemic, I was hired by a lot of major corporations, Google, Twitter, when it was called Twitter, large corporations. They wanted me to come and talk about corporate burnout. I'm like, oh, you picked the right person. Because I would come and talk about burnout, then I would come for 45 minutes and just rail against their hours of time. Why don't they let people off longer? I would just really do a little trickster subversion and say, I'll come talk about burnout, but actually what burnout really is just trauma showing up in our bodies from a lifetime of overworking, from a lifetime of worker exploitation, from people pushing and pushing, corporate greed, wanting people to be able to work like human machines. Forced to work 2 or 3 jobs like my father and my grandmother to keep up with the demands to put food on the table. This call for capitalism for us to do more, be more. You're not doing enough. Keep going, work more. Even when people are off work, they still feel like they have to be doing something. My brother works in a factory in Tennessee making tires, and he has a day off, and I'll call him and say, what you got going on today? You off? I gotta do something. I feel like I gotta be doing something. He can't even find a moment to relax. And so this is very much a spiritual, a mental, a psychological understanding that is deepening in us. I call it a deep socialization that has taught us that we aren't enough unless we rest, unless we do more. I want to move on. So these are some great questions that I always ask people when I'm doing our collective napping experiences. So our work really is this signature program called the Collective Napping Experiences, where I actually go and lay down yoga mats and blankets and pillows all over the world, and people have collective rest together. And then there's education around the idea of resting. And so these are questions that I've asked thousands of times to people to begin to understand that this is a deep psychological, spiritual movement that is happening. And I believe all political work is spiritual work ultimately. There's so many people. I just met a therapist here today. I signed my book. The therapist community and the mental health community has been pushing my work. Most people learn about my work from their therapists. They're in the therapist's office because they're overworked, they're burnt out, they're traumatized, they don't know how to stop, they're killing themselves from overworking. And so maybe we can just slow down and have a moment right now to kind of really think about some of these things that really deepen into us as human beings. As a theologian and spiritual leader, I really feel like it's important that we dig deep into what is happening from the spiritual sense. That our body has its own spiritual technology that guides us, these cues to know what is right and what isn't right. You know when you're exhausted, but you have to keep going. burning that oil, pushing and going. How is your heart? Who are you being? What are you holding? What story are you telling yourself? And what is a more liberating story you can tell? How can you create rest for yourself and others in this moment? And are you ready for change? These are not questions that you'll answer probably for the rest of your life. You'll be working with them and examining them and feeling them. But I love this question of the what story are you telling yourself, and then coming with what's a more liberating story you can tell, because there's an assumption that based on the culture, based on patriarchy, and ableism, and capitalism, and white supremacy, telling us all these things that we aren't enough, that we already are telling a story about us that's not liberating, that we're believing things about ourselves that are simply not true. So these are some really beautiful questions. I like to take a slow approach. It would be a blessing if someone fell asleep during my lecture. I would really, I would love that. You would not I would not feel bad about that at all. I've done thousands of collective napping experiences, and people fall asleep all the time. We wake them up. We've done virtual ones during the pandemic where people would be asleep on Zooms, and it will be done. Like, I'm done, and then it will be 2 hours later, they would email me, is it over? I fell asleep. I'm like, that's what I want. I want you to find a moment to slow down, to feel yourself, to connect. The rush of capitalism doesn't allow us to do that. Some more questions that are not up on the board. How can we be more human when capitalism attempts to degrade our divinity by seeing our bodies as mere machines? How can you resist the constant pull of grind culture in your life? How do we reclaim our time? Can you slow down more? Can you do less? How do we resist the violent systems that are embedded into our entire culture? I want to tell a story about my grandmother, Aura. She's the muse of this work. Here's some more photography. My friend in the front, that's Shanti. She's one of our NAP ministers. She's a trained midwife, and so she births babies. And then the young woman in the back is Andrea, and she's a doula. So it's interesting that these women are women who are bringing to life and supporting people in their health. But this is in Decatur, Georgia, in the backyard. We're resting all over the land, reclaiming the land, because also the earth needs to rest. The earth is being plummeted by corporate greed, the climate crisis, and we're ignoring the cues from the earth that allows us and tells us the seasons and when we should be resting. And so this is one of the photos. As an artist, a lot of the work is coming through like an examination through art. So we do performance installations, theater installations, photography, sound installations. I did a large sound installation in Australia last year, while 500 people did a huge rest and sound installation. This picture was actually up in the Atlanta airport. It was a 100 by 100, and it was up there for like 2 years, so people would pass by and have a moment to feel rest. These are the tenets of the NAP ministry, the tenets that I've created, that we've created to help people to settle and to really get this message. Because when I first started this work, people were like, what do you mean? What does capitalism and white supremacy have to do with the fact that I don't sleep a lot, that I don't rest, that I don't take naps, that I'm really extremely tired? The connection was really hard for people to get to. And so rest to me is a form of resistance because it disrupts and pushes back against capitalism and white supremacy. This work is simply a disruption. It's a pushback. It's a counter-narrative to the dominant culture's call for us to continuously be productive, to keep going, to go and do, to do. I had a story of a woman who I was doing chaplaincy work, and I was doing some counseling, and she was telling me that she was so sorry that she had to miss her appointment because like she literally had a heart attack the day before. And she was like, I just can never miss, I have to work. It's like people are so traumatized by the idea of this pace of culture that we're trying to keep up with. It's simply not sustainable. It's just not. I believe that our bodies are a site of deep liberation, that wherever our bodies are, we can find rest, we can find peace, we can find healing. And naps, to me, provide this healing portal to imagine, to invent, to heal. I love the quote that I heard earlier, I believe it was from Robert, that sleeping and dreams is the poor person's therapy. You know, this work came to me in a dream. I was sleeping and exhausted and began to experiment with rest and naps and sleeping on my own body. I began to sleep when my body said it was time to sleep. I listened to the cues. I was in graduate school. People were staying up late to 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. The pace of trying to keep up with that academic schedule was literally killing me. And so I began to just say, let the chips fall where they may. I just had deep faith that things would work out, and I began resting and napping when my body told me to. My teachers didn't like it because I wasn't turning in papers on time, but we got through it and I graduated, so that's what's important. And then the final one is our dream space has been stolen and we want it back. We will reclaim it via rest. I believe deeply in the idea of a dream space, that we go deep into the portal of rest and into the portal of dreaming and quality sleep, that things begin to make sense, that we can tap into worlds that we can't tap into in our awake world, that we can make connections, that we can hear a word from our ancestors, that we can begin to be human again and not machines. This is my grandmother Aura. It's so interesting, it's Every Shut Eye Ain't Sleep. That was the title of that. But every elder Black person I know has said this. And my grandmother was a refugee of Jim Crow terrorism. She's from Vicksburg, Mississippi. And like millions and millions of others during the Great Migration, she fled to the north. They fled to Chicago, to California. But mine landed on the south side of Chicago. And I really honor her because she told me the reason she left in the middle of the night with $20 in her pocket and a card with her aunt's name on it that her aunt had left the year before is because she had unfortunately saw a lynching. And she said that would never be her or her children. So my grandmother raised 8 children. My mother is one of her 8 children. She has dozens and dozens of grandchildren. I, of course, am her favorite. She told me that, so she told me I was her favorite. She has like 30, so I'm the favorite. And so Grandma Aura, here's a picture of her. Grandma Aura would tell me that she needed to rest. She worked 2 jobs. She worked at a psychiatric hospital cleaning, and then she also cleaned homes. And she would come home every single day and sit on her yellow plastic-covered couch. So anybody know about the plastic-covered couches? Okay. They don't do that no more. It's like these couches last forever, but this plastic-covered couch with her white uniform on, and she would close her eyes, and she would just sit there. And I always thought she was so strong. I was like, what is she doing? Is she asleep? But eventually, I began to want to protect that time for her, and I would tell my cousins, don't run in and out, be quiet, grandma's sleeping. And she would say, every shut eye ain't sleep. I'm resting my eyes. I'm listening. Sometimes she would say, I'm listening to God. Sometimes she'd say, I'm listening to the universe. But in these moments, watching her reclaim her time, watching her honor a rest practice, watching her sit and connect when all of culture around her was trying to crush her, when she was suffering from deep poverty, working 2 jobs, coming to Chicago, leaving her home as a refugee. It's so important that we actually say that these people were refugees. They did not want to leave. She never wanted to leave Mississippi. She owned land there. She loved Mississippi. But the violence of Jim Crow terrorism made her leave, and like millions of others, in this mass migration all over the country. And so my grandmother would say, let's listen, let's rest my eyes. And I really feel like she taught me how to rest. She taught me like the power of resting and what it means to actually rest. I'm going to save this collective rest moment for the end, but we will rest together. There's Grandma Aura. She's an ancestor now. She passed when I was 16 years old, but she has been in my dreams. She has been told me the name of this ministry. Like, we connected deeply in this dream space, and she is the muse of this work, because raising 8 children, suffering from what I believe was PTSD from seeing a lynching, working 2 jobs, she still was able to honor herself and honor her body via rest. And she's my favorite. So the NAP Ministry's work is grounded in a couple different things, a lot of different things actually. It's like a cocktail of all the things that I really love and what I've studied. And so these are some of them: Black liberation theology, what I was studying at Emory, womanism or womanist theology, racial justice, social justice, Afrofuturism and imagination, American history. I love that Benjamin just brought me on up with his, he just like set the stage. Community care, spiritual care, somatics. I'm really into the idea of somatics in the body, and then sleep science. It's a lot in there, but at the end of the day, it's all built towards justice. It's all built towards uplifting humanity. This is really human rights work, to encourage people to rest, to encourage people to reclaim their time from a system that doesn't see them as full humans unless they are producing and creating and making more money. Can't talk about all of them, but I would love to uplift womanism, because it's one of the things that many people have never heard of unless you went to seminary. People have heard of feminism, but womanism is a little bit of a different play on it. It actually came outside of the feminist movement, when the feminist movement was leaving out Black women. They were leaving out their issues. And so this is one of the many definitions of it by Layla Phillips, one of my favorite womanist scholars, from her book, Womanism on Its Own, a womanist reader. And so womanism is a social change perspective rooted in Black women's everyday experiences and everyday methods of problem solving in everyday spaces. And this is the key here, why this work is a global message for all, why me saving my own life via rest, I had to share it with others and make it possible for others to possibly tap into this work, is that it extends to the problem of ending all forms of oppression for all people. It seeks to restore the balance between people and the environment and nature, and reconciling human life with the spiritual dimension. And so this work exists because of my scholarship in womanism, my belief in the idea that no one is free until we're all free, and that our divinity, who we are as humans, our deep divinity, is not connected to how much we can accomplish, what we can do, what we can produce, our to-do list, how much money we make, how many jobs we can have, that it really is a deep spiritual divinity that just comes from us being alive. And that's not what capitalism or white supremacy or ableism or patriarchy says. It says the opposite. That's actually my husband. I volunteer him for all of my art presentations. Like, this was an art installation we did in Atlanta at a place called Pond City Market. It was a 3-day durational art installation where we built a bed on top of an historic train platform. This train platform was built over land that back in the day was a hot springs that actually was so healing that people from all over the country came to it to dip in the water and heal themselves. But of course, during Jim Crow, Black people weren't allowed to get into this spring, this beautiful hot spring that was healing people. And so we reclaimed this space, built this beautiful bed, and for 96 hours we had Black people resting on it all day and night with a soundtrack of beautiful music playing that was created. And so one of the people couldn't come. All the people were also Atlanta natives. So they were natives of the state of Georgia who possibly, maybe their families were denied the opportunity to go be in these healing springs. And so when someone couldn't come, I volunteered my husband. here's your white, let's get down there. And so that's him laying there. I appreciate him being a part of all my art installations and experiments. And this is where we get into the justice piece. When people say the name of this is called, my title for today is Rest Being a Portal for Justice. This is kind of the meat of it, the idea that these two toxic systems has brainwashed all of us in very unique ways. And so for me, within this reality, sleeping, quality sleep, resting, daydreaming, leisure, who will believe in me? I asked some of my friends, like, do you have any hobbies? What are you doing for leisure? And everything is being monetized right now. My sister is a beautiful fiber artist. She makes beautiful crochet. And people have been harassing her to sell it on Etsy. She's like, I don't want to sell them. And so this idea of always monetizing everything. And so it becomes a third space to me, this portal for healing, this opportunity for us to reclaim the dream space that was stolen from us. It disrupts, it pushes back, it says no to a system that wants you always going, constantly moving, on the go. I think it will take enormous effort in the form of radical healing, change, redemption, and deep collective care. This work is really rooted in community care, the care of communities. In my book, Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto, it's 60,000 words, and I didn't say self-care once, and I was very clear to not name self-care. We need deep community care. It won't be easy. It'll be a lifelong unraveling. And I believe resting and quality sleep and pushing back against systems that want us always going, this history of labor in our country, it'll be really something that will be a lifelong practice of unraveling, healing our ancestral, our individual, and our collective traumas. I'm naming grind culture as this collaboration. And when we align with these systems via our refusal to make space for ourselves and others to rest, we align with them and we become agents of this. So we are the portals. Rest is our foundation in a spiritual practice. And I believe rest is deep, deep justice work. I want to read an excerpt from my book that she mentioned. I'm working with Korean translators right now to translate into Korean. It just came out in Portuguese last month. Spanish is coming next year. And so when I first started this organization, I just wanted it to be something that one person felt, that I can take one yoga mat downtown and lay down and someone would lay on it and rest with me. And so for it to be this movement that has taken over, it tells me that we're such in a crisis of our spirit. We're in a crisis of heart. We're in a crisis of our mental health. People are suffering deeply under these systems. People are so exhausted. They're so tired. They're sleep deprived. They're sleep restricted. All of these things that it's happening for them. And so this is justice work. As an activist, it's deep justice work for me to be able to say to people, you are enough now. You can rest. You deserve rest. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to push yourselves. And I really want to speak to the students who are here, that grind culture headquarters is really academia. What's happening right now is, clap, somebody, okay, clap it up. Yes. This is the place. Yes. Somebody tired, like I got a paper due right now, like, yes. This is the place where they begin to, you begin to push your bodies. You begin to experiment with staying up late, pushing, trying to fulfill every single thing that you have to do, readying yourself to get out into the new world. And so I want to speak to them really deeply right now to say, you don't have to suffer and push yourself to these places of exhaustion to be able to be successful. You don't have to do that. There are ways for you to be able to balance, for you to be able to see yourselves as more than just someone who can put output out. That your productivity is not attached to who you truly are. This work is a battle cry for being sick and tired of white supremacy and capitalism. A resting place, a temporary space of joy and freedom. The way both systems view human beings is evil and unsustainable. No one is being clearly seen within them, and instead are viewed as less than human and a machine to be used and abused and overlooked. Resting our bodies and minds is a form of reverence. And when we honor our bodies via rest, we are connecting to the deepest parts of ourselves. We are freedom making. What stories are we holding deep inside that are untold and uncovered because we are too exhausted? This rest work is holding space for our memories, our micro-histories, and all the things that make us human. The idea of rest as resistance can be challenging to distill in a few lines when I'm asked to do a quick take. It's counterintuitive to believe that rest is not a place to just waste time, but instead a generative place of freedom. We have never learned this in our culture. The thought of not doing, even for a short time, is seen as lazy and unproductive. So an explanation for rest as a form of justice is very, very layered. I have learned that one of the most concise and true ways to share this message is to say, rest makes us more human. It brings us back to our humanness, to be more human. Oh, this is another great photo. Kudzu, you guys have heard, that's the kudzu plant. Yeah, I crawled into the kudzu plant in this dress. That was fun. That was another beautiful one, all over Georgia, resting on the land. And I guess this really is the thought that really holds the thesis of this work. And when I began researching it in seminary, is from M. Sean Copeland. She's one of my favorite theologians, and her book is called In Fleshing Freedom, Body, Race, and Being. And this is just a question that an inquiry that I sit with forever, that I hope to rest in forever. This idea of how do we care for our own bodies as sacred? And how do we cooperate to craft a world in which all bodies can thrive? This is the question. This is the idea of seeing our bodies as sacred. When I think about not sleeping, 4 hours, I think it's the 5-day, 4 hours, where it's like it begins with the diabetes and all of the stress and everything that's happening to your body. Why are we allowing ourselves to be so violent towards our own bodies? Why are we pushing ourselves? Why are we believing that that is okay? Who has taught us that? Why do we think that it's okay to push our children, to do more, to be in more, to really see ourselves as machines? And I wonder also about the societal issues that make it so hard for people to thrive, that make it where my grandmother had to work 2 jobs, or people right now are working 2 or 3 jobs and cannot pay rent. I just read an article about there's nowhere in the country where you can work a minimum wage job, even if you work like 80 hours a week, where you can afford any type of rent. The housing crisis is really hurting people. And so how do we, as human beings and people who are in humanity together, how do we care for our own bodies and begin to cooperate to craft this world? And I believe it's through science, it's through the humanities, it's through deep care work, it's through the truth, it's by telling the truth about what's really happening. And so I love this quote, and I think it's really what really grounds this work to create it so that it is a justice movement. Here's another one of us sleeping and resting. She was actually asleep, my friend Andrea, in the blue. She has 5 children, and so she's a doula, and she also is a farmer in Georgia, so she has a farm. And so she was very tired, so she actually fell asleep during this shoot. She looks so peaceful there because she's actually sleeping. We're both fake sleeping, but she's asleep. She's gone, she's knocked out. And then to imagine a new world that centers liberation, I believe rest must be our foundation. It must be the foundation for us to invent, for us to restore, for us to imagine and build, exhaustion will not save us. It just won't. It won't save us. I want to go back and go to this. I want to see if I can go back. I want us to do this collective rest moment. I think this is a beautiful way to end the sleep conference, is that we sit together and have a moment to process and download. I'll be downloading the information from the sciences this morning. The Alzheimer's, what is her beautiful name? Yes, that, I can't stop thinking about that whole, I can't wait to tell people about it. It was so beautiful and so powerful. Here we go. Can I play this, you see how there's audio embedded in here? Am I able to play it? So my grandmother taught me this idea of resting your eyes. And so I do collective rest events all over the country. But people, you can just sit. You don't have to have a yoga mat. You don't need a pillow. You don't need a yoga blanket. You can't do it. Okay. He's so nice. He's like, you cannot. Okay, that's fine. But I want to just have a moment where we can just close our eyes. And maybe I'll read a short poem. Yeah, I'll read a short poem while we close our eyes and honor my grandmother Aura in the idea of resting our eyes at any moment and breathe in, have a moment of collective rest together. Go to your beds. Go to your couches. Find a hammock. Go into the portal of naps. Go there often. You don't have to wait on permission from dominant culture. Your body is divine and sovereign. Go to your spaces of rest, joy, and freedom. Create them in your imagination. Create them in your communities. Create them in your homes. Create them in your heart. Daydream collectively. Do all these things with others. We will not heal alone. We will not thrive alone. Community care will save us. It is already saving us. We must be more human. We want to bathe and soak in our complexities. We want to take our sweet time. We want to tap into the bottomless well of wisdom and surprise waiting for us inside the portal of rest. Go to the water. Go to the depths of the ocean inside of you. Float there. Rest there. Imagine and dream there. It is game over for the lies of white supremacy and capitalism. We know better. We are more than what we have ever been told. And we must continue seeing each other and ourselves no matter how distorted and exhausted we show up. Take to your beds. Accept all you have ignored and then rest more. What does your body want? What does your soul need? What are the whispers that have been silenced by the cranking gears of grind culture? What have we missed in our urgency and in our rushing? This is just the beginning. And for this truth, we must be grateful for the awareness, for the information, for the reclaimed power and time. This is a transmission, a manifesto for the rest pilgrimage. Come back to it often. Keep it close. The messages will keep repeating. View it as evidence that you are not alone in your desire to be liberated from exhaustion. Our battle cry and our mantra: we will rest. Say it in your hearts. Whisper it aloud. Repeat it as you fall asleep. Tell your neighbor, we will rest. We will rest. We will rest. Thank you.